Time to do some sketchy shit. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Hope I get away with it. Oh, doo-dah day.
Good evening, everybody, and this is Dan Hollifield here with Last Man Standing, and I'm having to hang on in stupid o'clock because my upload to their recording is not finished yet. So I've got two channels' voices in my ears right now. So we don't have we don't have Rich with us yet tonight, but we do have Aunt Donna, and we do have Joe, and everything is going swimmingly. Let me go over to the other channel. My upload for Stupid O'Clock is still stuck at 69%.
Good number.
But
Good number.
It's a hobby.
Yeah,
unfortunately, I've still got Chris and Joe Dog talking in the background. I can't leave the room yet, but
yeah, I wonder how it's going to work with the people who left before the show ended.
It's saying that John has not uploaded and Lewis has not uploaded, and I'm fixing to leave the show right now. Well, no, they're gone, so their upload is still going. I think mine is got interrupted because I started this show, so it may be at 70% for a couple of days, or at least until I end here. Rich just sent me a message saying he'll be here late, so we are not going to be deprived of his sparkling wit, which I do appreciate.
We almost broke him last night.
We almost broke last night. I looked at some of the hashtags and I go, yeah, I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Time to hit the liquor cabinet. Oh, seriously. And believe it or not, I've still got this much left of this dark and stormy. So I'm being very, very moderate. Oh, we do have a surprise special guest. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
I don't know about special, but I'm here.
Oh, yeah. I've still got the other channel going because my upload doesn't seem to have made any progress since I started this show. So
I just
we'll
edited
find
mine
out.
early.
It may.
Joe said, "Don't
Yeah.
worry about it."
Well, I could.
He
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and kill it now anyway.
he said he just
It's
figured
still
he'd
stuck
try it.
on the same number.
See if this
Yeah.
works the way I'm thinking.
I think he said
Now
he
it
just
wants me to
figured he'd
open
try
the
it, see what
uploads
happened.
page.
I just X'd out of the
Oh,
browser
there it is.
We shall
after I left the
see.
studio.
Gotta love technology.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay.
Aunt Donna, you know what the first rule of computers is?
A hammer?
If at
Close.
first you don't
Every
succeed,
good
hit it with a
computer
bigger hammer.
No, every good computer should come with an even better ball bat.
With anything technology related, never show fear
Oh.
and never show that you're in a rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You'll
I
pay.
did some updates.
Computer, if you don't cooperate, I may find a very large axe to reprogram you with.
Right.
Do you remember the old Dilbert commercial with Dalbert holding the ball bat and the computer screen cracked in two with a little bit of electrical stuff going in between the circuits? Says the network's down, but I'm feeling better.
One of my favorite IT memes is a picture of a hammer sitting in a server room that just has a label on it that says hard reset.
Oh my.
In case of emergency, break glass.
But that first rule of computers came around 81, somewhere in there.
Oh, what are you willing to bet the people building the first Babbage engine didn't occasionally give it a good thump?
Yeah. Well,
I had a computer that I had to thump just to keep it running. So
Chris, Eve was the first computer operator.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She had an apple in one hand and a wine in the other. Guys,
it's not Friday night, Dan. You got a week, buddy.
I'm just going, another Sunday morning going down. Downhill.
I can't tell that story amongst most people because a lot of people never heard of Wayne Computer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah,
it's been a while. It took me a flash second to. Oh yeah.
Just imagine if they put Dell how really different those commercials would have been. We will leave it to the audience's imagination from there. You'll just have to look up that stuff.
Give you a dirty joke involving two computer names from back in the day. He was working on his Wang using his Wang to access her gateway.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
So he can in turn ring her Dell
my.
One of these days. To the moon, Alice.
But do you remember the movie Electric Dreams?
Yeah.
Remember that line where she said, "So essentially, you're wanting to insert a hard drive into a mainframe."
We'll leave that one where it lays.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Oh.
We'll just say it takes a lot of RAM. Anyway,
Indeed.
I couldn't leave that.
He tried so hard too.
And the more Bob, the better.
Poor Dan's going, I've lost control.
Oh, just imagine if Rich was here. He is IT also.
I
I
know.
know. I may as well be.
Oh, Rich is going to be mad he missed this out on this.
I don't have the job title, but they had me do a lot of the nighttime computer stuff at work when things were not going well, and I finally taught people. I wrote it down. It only took a Post-it note. Said, "Look, you go here, click here, then you scan the drive for errors, and then you do what was it? Defrag the hard drive, and then Lotus 123 will work for another 6 hours." And basically, that's what they had me doing. Scan the drive for errors, defrag the hard drive, turn it back over to the people that were trying to use the computer that would not work. And all it was they were trying to use 10 years worth of data in Lotus 123. The spreadsheet was too big.
Oh.
That was all. If they'd broken it down into individual years, they wouldn't have had a problem. I've taught them how to do this with Excel. Do not create an infinite spreadsheet. Give it about 1,000 lines for you to do your data entry for a year. If you need any more than that, you can always add another couple of hundred. Let it go, and then make that an archive and have a brand new blank one with all the calculations and everything intact, and start that with the new year's date code. It's not that difficult.
NDOT, in their infinite wisdom, uses Excel spreadsheets as a database. And
in other words, Donna, that's what he said.
Yeah. And we only have to use these when we're doing price lookups. Like if we're doing a change order on a project, and the contractor sends us their price, we have to verify that it's within a certain range and everything. And you click on the first field where you put in your contract, so it'll pull up
Hey, Don.
your current contract amount. And so you'll type in your contract and you'll hit enter, and you'll wait about 30 seconds, and you'll see that field populate with your information. And then you type in the next little bit of information, you hit enter, and you wait for it to pull over 5 years of data from 6 different districts for that same code. And God help you if it's maintaining traffic, because that is on every single project.
Yes.
Wait a second. I thought there were 13 districts.
For NDOT, there's
That's the Hunger
6.
Games. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Different state.
Yeah. But yeah, it is pain. Like I can knock out a change order in no time until I get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm wanting to beat my head against the wall, especially when it's one of those oddball. They give you the name of the item. Well, that item pertains to about 20 different codes, so now I got to figure out the code.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Without the exact code, it takes a long time to search it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you have to get the exact code to narrow it down to the proper price ranges. And then if your district doesn't have enough samples to pull from, you got to add other districts.
Yeah.
Yep, it's about trying to sort a nest of snakes when you only know what species they are instead of how long or how old.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I've got a problem at work where there's one computer that used to be hooked up to the company network that some company IT guy came down and disconnected from the network a year ago, and we need it to be hooked up to the network, and we have to wait for somebody else to come down from corporate and physically go to the server room and give it permission for that particular computer to be able to access the LAN again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also another computer that they're waiting on a guy to come down from corporate to run an Ethernet cable 15 feet and plug into it. They've got a brand new microcomputer sitting there with a monitor and everything. Cannot access anything except what has been loaded into it. And my supervisor asked me to copy some stuff that the people really need to use and put it in there, but have it be offline functional.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take this thing that is supposed to be on the network and supposed to be uh, able to be dynamically um, updated and have it be frozen. Just what I said, hey, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is all you got until somebody else puts a brand new copy of this in there. So here you go. And basically, there is a company policy that no one can actually go out to Home Depot or whatever and buy a long enough piece of Ethernet cable to plug in to the router that it's supposed to be plugged into and then plugged into the back of that computer. It's just got to sit there until somebody comes back from Pennsylvania, I do believe, Philadelphia, and and file the proper paperwork for that to be accomplished. When, anybody could do it
Well,
except they get in trouble.
if they get proper warning that IT is coming, they could always just unhook it that morning.
No, once it's connected to the company network, it gets scanned continuously to find out whether
Yep.
or not it's authorized to be hooked up.
Yep.
Yep.
To err as human, to really screw things up, you need a computer, and if you really want to mess it up, put somebody in charge making the rules that doesn't understand what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Gee, sounds like my former director. Ah,
He said,
Pretty much. And I'm going, y'all spent the money on it. It's sitting there being a paperweight. And here's Richie.
"Hey, Rich."
hey, Rich.
Hey, folks.
Hey,
Just got back from my grandson's birthday party a little bit ago.
Ah,
Hope it went well.
Yeah. Well, shortly after I got there, my daughter-in-law's mother left and her grandmother left, and my wife's younger sister left. But they'd been there from the start. I got there late because I wasn't feeling well. So, and then I waited there until Misty showed up, and because she had to work today. So we found out about the party yesterday, and last week Misty traded the girl for today because she needed today off for her father's funeral, who passed away last week. So, and then Misty found out yesterday that they're doing the party today. She's like, really? So
That's how it goes.
yep.
So she gets off at 8. So, so waiting there, and we sat there and just bullshitted with my son and my daughter-in-law for a little bit, talking about World of Warcraft and other games and stuff like that, and just being goofs and having fun. It was good to sit and talk with my son.
You haven't missed much. We've just been discussing the negative merits of corporate oversight to an IT department.
I was introduced to computers in 85 or 86 when my bosses retired and sold out to the Evil Funeral Corporation. They bought in a computer that the program was florist only. It was called Daisy. Wasn't that cute? And it was designed by somebody down in, a place called Chattanooga, Tennessee.
They have flowers there.
So anytime I had to they did come up and spend a couple days with me showing me how to do what they considered was what I needed to do, which was input accounts, and that was it. Input accounts, make payments or make charges on them.
Good night, Dawn. Appreciate you stopping by.
Good night, Dawn.
Hi, Don.
And then they went back to Chattanooga. So if there was any problem, I had to call Chattanooga. But I'm like, well, there's all these other things on here. What are they for? Well, you'll probably never need them. Okay. What happens when I push this button? And that next thing you know, I'm generating all sorts of reports that my manager is just loving. And then when Carl came into my life, he came with a Commodore 64. And these magazines that in the back had programs that you could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I programmed a game, and I programmed a checkbook register on the Commodore 64.
Nice.
Cool.
So I'm not as naive as I like to let on, but I'm lazy, so I'd rather go to my IT and do it myself.
And since he's just in the other room, it's not a long walk.
See, I've got my wife trained pretty well, because when I left NDOT to go to RQAW,
famous last words.
That's what I was thinking. You notice she's not behind you.
No, she's already in bed. But no, when I left NDOT, when I was still with NDOT, even though I was in construction, I was kind of their IT person, because they all hated the guy that took over my position as IT. And I left. She was still at NDOT and having to go through the winter classes, and they couldn't get the projector to work. So of course, one of the teachers goes, "I wish Joe still worked here." My wife goes, "I've got his number. I can call him." So she does.
She have your number.
Yeah. She calls, and she explained what was going on. I'm like, Oh, that's simple. Just get a little step ladder, move the ceiling tile over, pull the power cord out of the plug, wait 30 seconds, plug it back in. That's always been the fix to that issue. All right, cool. Hangs up. They try it, still won't fire up. So she calls me back. I'm like, well, at this point, you're going to have to go down to Keith because I can't do anything for you anymore. So she goes down, and Keith was calling him lazy is actually giving him too much credit.
Wow.
She went up to him and she's like, "Hey, we're having issues with the projector." And before he could say anything else, she just rattles off every troubleshooting step they did. Because she rattled off what they had tried before I told them to unplug it. And she rattled off everything, including unplugging it, plugging it back in, and he's just sitting there going, you actually tried all that? She goes, yeah, I did. You know IT? She goes, no, but my husband does, you dumbass. You know who I am.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta love those deer in the headlights moments.
Mm-hmm.
As long as
Back
you're not the
when-
deer.
Well, he
Back
wasn't
when the-
used to people actually coming up and going, I've done this, and this.
Mhm.
And basically already did his job for him rather than waiting the 3 hours for him to come down and do said job.
Mhm.
So she
Back
saved him a
when,
lot of work, but he still didn't know what in the hell to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when
Uh,
cell phones were just getting popular, we were at this. They brought a plane to Danville, and we were out there at the show. And this gentleman beside me notices I have a cell phone. He says, "Yeah, my son has this model," and he rattles off a name that I'm like, whatever. He says, and the book that goes with it, the instruction book, is like this thick. And I says, "Oh, mine's bigger than that." And I point at Carl.
He wrote the book.
The
Several-
people on the first level help desk, a lot of them forget that I was help desk at one point in time. And they're like, well, did you do this? Yes. 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 Did you read the ticket? No. Try reading the ticket. You know, tickets for me list all the troubleshooting I've done. Holy, what? You did all this? Yes. Why? Because I used to be help desk. I know some stuff. There's just certain things that I do not have the power to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I
Now,
used to love it.
Most of second level, I trained for their new hires and stuff like that. So most of second level will, Rich. Okay, who submitted the ticket? Rich. Okay, what's going on? Okay, all right, Rich. Try this. Okay, we're good. Try this. I don't have an A dash that works. Oh, okay. But the first levels, most of them were trained by our other trainer who retired. Anyways, sorry, you're starting to say, Dan.
I used to love it when my computer guru actually worked at the ISP where Aphelion is based. He was a sysadmin. So if we had a problem, I could just shoot him an email, and whenever he saw it, he would log into root and fix it right then.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, he had total access to everything. So if there was a problem, he could pinpoint whether or not it was something in the system or something mechanical or something on my end, like my connection was faulty and it wasn't sending enough information for this stuff to work. Usually it was people had changed what amounted to a jumper on a hard drive in one server and not told the rest of the system that jumper had been changed.
Mhm.
So it's, it was hair pulling at times, but he knew exactly what to do. And since he had God mode access, he could do it, most of it, from home. But now he's moved off to Seattle and not working for the same company. So the best he can do is call up somebody he used to work with and go, "Hey, it's me. Can you check this right here and see whether or not that's got the right settings on it? Because there's something wonky happen with this thing that I'm connected with." And they go, "Oh yeah, sure." And after that, I was able to call their help desk and say, "Look, Rob's my friend. Used to work with you. You remember Rob? He's big dude. Oh yeah, we remember Rob." That opened plenty of doors that other people would not have access to,
Mhm.
and they'd go out of their way to make sure. Because I knew Rob, I was automatically important. They treated me like I was the head of a corporation instead of some guy with an account. Oh.
Yeah, when I would call IoT, Indiana Office of Technology, which is the agency, the tech support agency for the entire state, I always prayed that I would get Tom. He was one of the help desk guys. He was one of the few help desk guys that seemed to know his ass from a hole in the ground. Because if I called in and I got him, I knew all I had to say was, "Hey, it's Joe from the Port District. Here's what's going on. Send this ticket directly to so-and-so." He'd type up, go, "Okay, it's sent. Thank you." Other people, they'd want, "Well, have you tried that?" "Yes, I've tried that. I've tried this. I've also already spoke to Jack Miltonberger. He's the one that told me to send in the damn ticket." Because everything else that can be tried, I do not have access to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had our network guy one time, Jack Miltonberger, nice guy. We were having issues at one of the buildings on the district campus not getting internet. And he goes, "Well, how much do you know about fiber?" "It's enough to be dangerous." "Why?" He goes, "Go over there, pull the fiber line out of the router. Look down the cable." Okay. So I go over to that building, I pull the fiber line, got him on speakerphone, like, "Okay, I got the cable out. What am I looking for?" He goes,
Is it light or is it dark?
"Yep." He goes, "Put it up directly to your eye. You see a light?" I'm holding it like right up next to my glasses, kind of turning in. I'm like, "No, there's no light." "Ah, shit. All right."
Fiber breaks suck.
He goes, "Send in the ticket. I'll be out in there the next day or two." Like,
When I was working for,
he goes, "No."
working for builders. Builders Plumbing and Heat Supply Company also own Southwest Pipe and Supply and Spesco and KDA Kitchens. So it was one major company based out of Lombard, Illinois, that had offices all over the country. This is actually the first place I started working IT. My best friend was the network admin. and he managed to get my ass in there and out of the factory. So it's his fault that I'm in IT. But I'm glad I'm in IT because I make more than twice what I do or what I would have if I stayed in the factories.
Mm-hmm.
But we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we start getting calls from a bunch of places within a certain area, and we're like, oh, crap. None of them are able to do anything. So we immediately end up calling level 3, Broadwing, actually, communications was our provider at the time. And it's like, oh, yeah, we got a fiber break and blah, blah, blah. Don't you think you should have called the affected customers to let them know that there's a fiber break? So we'd have to call those offices back going, yeah, it will probably be at least 4 hours and possibly 4 days for them to get that fixed. Well, why? Because there's a break in the fiber optic cable, so it is completely out of our hands. It's in our internet provider's hands. And then, funny enough, the company that I go to work for between my stints on first level at Catton, so I was working for a company called SEI for Catton. Then Catton pulled the account from that, so I ended up going to the RRD side, and RRD decided to send their help desk to India. So I was unemployed for a couple of months while I was healing from gastric bypass surgery, came back from that, and ended up working for Broadwing Communications, doing internal help desk. So I wasn't dealing with external customers. I was dealing with the salespeople and stuff like that. But still, I had to laugh that, I go from that to Catton to Broadwing. And then Broadwing gets bought out by level 3, and then my job goes away. And then I end up coming back to Catton, which my interview for coming back to Catton was, yeah, this is what's changed in the past year. When are you starting? That's literally what it was. It's the help desk manager and the help desk supervisor sat down, told me everything that's changed since I stopped supporting, asked how the family was, bullshit for a little bit, and didn't ask me any interview type questions. It's how's Misty? How are the kids? What's going on? And then it's like, so when are you starting? How's Monday? Like Monday, huh? I'm like, my job ends on Friday because this was a Tuesday morning. I was interviewing after finding out that my contract was terminating on Friday. So I'm like, I can probably start sooner if you really need me to start sooner. I mean, the contract ends Friday. What are they going to do? Fire me?
Yeah.
They're like, no, Friday's good. Friday's good. And then, oh God, my manager at the time, I was so pissed. So that Friday morning when I come in, she looks at me. She's like, go home. I'm like, huh? What did I do? She's like, I'm still paying you for the day. Just write everything down, send your timesheet in. Have a good day. Go home. So I walked out and I called Misty and I'm like, honey, I'm unemployed. And she's like, what? I'm like, until I start at Catton on Monday. I mean, she's like, don't do that to me. But literally, I finished my contract at the one place. I had to wait for the new contract to start, which was a whole weekend. So in the last 30, it'll be 39 years this year. In the last 39 years, do you want to guess my total time unemployed?
1 week.
1 year total.
Wow.
From the time I was 8 till I'll be 50 in April. 1 year total unemployed time.
Wow.
Not bad.
Mhm.
That's roughly equal to what I've spent on medical leave in the last 50 years. And that was only 2 years added together.
Yeah, starting at 8 years old, my father started making me go to work with him. Then when that went by the wayside because OSHA regulations changed, and if you weren't insured by the company, you couldn't be on the job site. So I couldn't go to work with him anymore. I was unemployed for a whole maybe 10 days before starting to work at the grocery store where my mom worked. Then went to Burger King, then went to Wendy's. Oh God, bouncing all over the place. You know, as young people do. I've held maybe 10 jobs my entire life, including the time when I was a teenager into my early 20s.
Let's see.
I've
I was
had exactly 3 employers in my entire life, and one of them was my dad. I've had 2 different companies I've worked for. One of them was while I was in college, and it was part-time so that I could go to school. Then after I ran out of money for college, got started at the nameless factory that doesn't allow me to mention their name.
Mm-hmm.
But they are a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah.
And it's been good. It's paid the bills. It's allowed me to explore lots and lots and lots of different interests and talents in my long and checkered career.
Mhm.
And by this time in 2024, I will be taking my final vacations before going back to work half a day and walking out for the last time. So I'm on short
Nice.
time.
Mm-hmm.
At least 17 more years.
The friends that we had supper with last night were from where Carl used to work. And the one lady is a computer programmer for the States. So she's still working remote. The other lady is a counselor. And she told us last night that the supervisor had retired and asked if Carl would come back and take her position. I'm surprised y'all couldn't hear Carl laugh where y'all live.
I started my first job at 13. Sorry, Richie, as a clown. Went from that to working at Staples at 16. Never actually left Staples in the 8 years I was there. I dropped down to part-time a few different times to work at Comcast, which didn't work out, so I went back. Then I tried working at Von Tobel's, which is a lumber hardware place local to Northwest Indiana. Left there, went back to Staples, and then finally fully left Staples after 8 years to go to INDOT. Went back to Staples one last time because I was seasonal at INDOT when I first started, so I didn't get holiday pay.
Mm-hmm.
Which meant I was missing about 4 days worth of pay for the month of November.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't get paid for Election Day. I didn't get Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, or the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I went back to Staples for 2 shifts on Black Friday weekend, like an idiot.
As you
And-
Money's money,
Well, I hadn't been
especially
gone
if
for
you
more
need
than,
it.
Yeah, and I hadn't been gone for more than 6 months, so they could just rehire me without doing all the extra paperwork.
Yeah.
And I still maintained all my clearances. And I stopped in. I went in on Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, just to get in front of the register system, make sure I still remembered everything, figure out how to do the gift receipts that they, after years of people asking for them, finally added in.
Mm.
And the guy who took over my spot as customer service lead was putting me back in the system. He's like, well, you haven't been gone for more than 6 months, so I could technically put you in as a manager still, I guess. I'm like, well, I ain't making that call. I said, get the GM on the phone, find out. So he pages Mark, our GM, to call the cash office. He calls back there. Al hits the speakerphone. Before he says anything, he goes, put him in as the manager. Click. Okay, looks like I'm going back to being a key holder for the weekend.
Wow.
But got full time at the state that January. Left for a year to work for a buddy of mine with his DirecTV business. Went back to NDOT and now at RQAW. But in that whole time period, I mean, going from NDOT or going from Staples to NDOT, I had a weekend off. You know, pretty much every time I jumped, I had 2 days off before the next job started. Unless you count the clowning, which, I mean, we were technically laid off from like Halloween on. You might get the occasional, holiday party, but
Oh, dang, it's raining.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
It'll be all right.
I've told them at work that I'm perfectly willing to come in as a consultant after I retire.
mm-hmm.
My fee will be $1,000 an hour, 5-hour minimum. If it takes me 5 minutes or 5 days to fix whatever it is you want me to fix. And mostly, I don't see any reason they would need to call me back unless somebody takes one of the spreadsheets that I have created and unprotects it and wipes out the formulas. In which case, I have a thumb drive that I can plug in and put everything back.
And you say it could take 5 days, and it only takes 5 minutes.
You called for a miracle worker, Captain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I told my used to be supervisor who's been promoted, I'll give him a copy of the thumb drive. Anybody that they pick to do my job when I'm gone, even though they're supposed to do away with my job when I'm gone, I will give that one single person a copy of that thumb drive. I will keep one, and I will make a hidden directory on the company network with everything in it too. I'm not going to tell them about that.
Nope.
Because they would freak out that I would know how to hide a directory from them.
Oh, don't even bother to hide it. Just name it an obscure name. I had so many IT things stored in a folder called Lake County Bridge Scoping. It wasn't until after I left I got questioned on that.
I could probably put a folder in there that goes never delete, and put all my stuff in there.
That's the first
Somebody
one
delete it then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or just give it some random alphabet title with a couple of special characters and whatnot, and put it somewhere away from the area of the system that my normal stuff is,
Yeah, just
or even just
call it
store
Grandma's
it.
favorite recipes.
No, somebody delete that.
Mhm.
It'd have to be something innocuous like calendar or Georgia Bulldogs scores from 2017, and there's stuff in there from people that have no longer been employed there for like 15 years,
Mhm.
and nobody knows they're there but me, because I'm the only one that pokes around in the system and goes, well, this looks like it's. Oh yeah, I recognize that name. I know who that is, and it's full of everything they ever did, and nobody even knew that they did it.
Mhm. IoT in their infinite wisdom couldn't figure out why server space kept getting taken up. It's like, well, I'm looking at the actual root of the home directory just for our district, and there are people who have not worked here before I started within Dot. Delete their home directory folders. I guarantee you're going to get most of your space back.
I've got half of mine. There's one computer that's still running Windows 7.
That's not bad.
I like
It
Windows
Could be
7.
worse.
it had been unplugged for 2 years before the ransomware attack a few years ago,
Mhm.
and they had upgraded my computer. So this special program somebody in France wrote for the job I was doing would not run on Windows 10. So they dug this computer out from, I think, Kansas City. It just been sitting on a shelf because they'd done away with the job position out there. Nobody was doing what I did.
Mhm.
I was the only one in the United States that was doing my job when it should have been 5 people, one at each of the other factories. And they shipped me this thing, and they said, "Don't ever plug an Ethernet cable into this thing because it's pre-ransomware, so we can't trust it." So ran the program, did what I had to do, got all the test results, did what I had to do. It's still sitting on a shelf in my lab, not connected to anything. Doesn't even have a keyboard connected to it anymore. Not even plugged in. Not to the Ethernet, not to the electrical outlet, anything. And I'm
Mhm.
going, this would be a perfect place to hide all my shit. Just go ahead, plug it in, hook up the keyboard. I've still got the monitor sitting there. It's one of those really funky monitors with a totally different cable on the back of it. Probably one of the early versions of HDMI instead of VGA, which is what everything else is plugged into. And go ahead, create a directory there in documents, put
Mhm.
everything in it, wouldn't take up much space, shut it down, unplug it, pack it back away. Just it, a not quite so portable thumb drive.
Well, folks, I'm going to call it a night. I got to be up early tomorrow, so I will see you good folks later, and
All right.
y'all have a
See?
great rest of the night.
Appreciate
See
you
you later, Joe.
being
Yeah,
here
thank you,
tonight.
Joe. Thank you for
Have a
being
great
here.
night.
Yep.
Later, brother. Have a great night.
See ya.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do when I'm out of there because they don't really know the full extent of everything I've been asked to do over the years.
I'm sure they'll find out.
Probably about 3 days after I walk out. Yeah. Why doesn't this work? Oh, that doesn't look like the paperwork we've been used to getting. No. There was somebody that makes out the actual schedules for the production lines that had been gotten used to me unofficially doing an inventory every day of what I had to work with, not the whole factory, but just what I had. So they knew what supplies I had. They knew they couldn't exceed this particular number for this particular product because there wasn't enough other stuff to make it do. And then I got in the QC job, and they weren't getting that anymore. And they complained because I made their job easier. And this is somebody in corporate. So kind of trickled down to the locals. And I'm going, well, you told me not to do that anymore. So I can't do it. I was on the outskirts, somewhere outside the fallout from that explosion. But I was able to observe some frantic emails going back and forth. They still haven't figured it out.
I was voluntold to add additional duties. So what happened is the lady that we had that was in charge of doing our fishing campaigns and stuff like that left. So the CIO, well, at the time CIO, now COO, and the director of security is like, we'll just have Rich do it because he's the one that actually knows the program backwards and forward. Because it's part of the LMS that we use. We can also use it to perform phishing tests. And of course, I'm the only one that's bothered to learn how to use the goddamn thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that, from what I was told, the meeting with my manager went like this. Oh yeah, Rich is doing this now. Not can Rich do this. Rich is doing this now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it is nice to know that, you know, the CIO and the director of security are both fine with me taking on that additional responsibility. But then again, they're used to how detailed I get with the security awareness reports for when we do our ISO 27001 certification compliance training. So they're like, hey, Rich does it with this. Yeah, he probably knows the other part of it too, which I watched them demo it when we went to the new LMS for security. And I'm like, okay, I never have to worry about this again. So my brain went, yeeted that crap out of there. So, yeah, very shortly thereafter, it's like, hell, I've got to go and learn how to do this now.
Yep, I had that problem myself. There was some stuff that I was not supposed to do it, but the guy whose job it was an idiot. So I had to take up a little bit of about a third of what his job was supposed to be. And basically it was just data entry in a program that I really, really hate. But I was one of the original 5 people that was trained on it. So I had the notebook with everything to tell me how to use this program. And I had to figure out what modifications they'd done to it in the 10 years between when I was trained and when I got called upon to increase my responsibilities. And then the idiot decided that he could do 3 people's jobs, one of them being mine, all by himself. And company said, okay. Now, what he was trying to do was get his job turned into a management job and him stay in it. When that didn't happen, he pitched a hissy fit and retired. And somebody else got his job and was stuck with doing 3 people's work. I mean, one guy took early retirement to keep from having to share an office with this guy.
That's
So,
pretty bad.
I mean, seriously, totally competent at his job, knew how to do it inside and out. Other guy says, hey, I can save you some money and I'll do all of this work myself. It's easy. It's just, writing down things.
Yeah.
People wanted me. I mean, there were people there that offered me $1,000 cash to take this job away from the guy. All I had to do was bid on it. It was mine. And I go, you turned it over to him. He's got it so screwed up. It would take me 5 years after I retire to straighten it back out again, and it would still go back to being 3 people's jobs. And you'd have to separate it for that to happen. I'm not bidding on it. You created this mess. You clean it up. I've got my own job to do. All of a sudden, they said, oh, well, we want to do away with your job. We can't justify doing you having that job. Nobody needs to do that anymore. And I look at them and I go, the justification for my job is to keep half a dozen people in management from having to do this job. I do it myself, plus a dozen other things that you're not even aware of. If you don't want to do it yourself, leave me alone. If you want to take up this responsibility that was created by a manager who was supposed to be doing this, and 2 engineers that were supposed to be doing this, but now I do it for a fraction of their pay, and they get to go to all the meetings that they need to go to, feel free. You'll have to give me a 2 pay grade jump, and I will have access to unlimited overtime. I took a $20,000 a year pay cut to get this daytime only job, to get off swing shift. You put me back on swing shift, I will retire when I want to retire, and you will pay me out the wazoo for every minute that I can work extra. Because I will do it.
Mm.
They took me at my word. They actually signed an agreement with the union that they would not do away with my job until after I left. So when I retire, my job's supposed to disappear within 3 to 6 months to the time that I walk out the door for the last time. I think they're going to find a way to justify the existence of that job again, because there's nobody out there that they've got working for them now with my qualifications. These kids they've got now can't even put the cell phone down long enough to do the job they've got, much less add all the stuff I do to theirs.
I hate to think about what's going to happen when I retire.
Hey, I've told them flat out, this is what's going to happen. You're gonna wind up asking for these reports that I do every day, every week, every month, every year, and they're not going to be there because nobody else knows how to do it. There's plenty of people out there that are bright enough that they could learn, but you won't let me train anybody.
I'm not really worried about what happens when I retire, because fuck them. I'm done.
That was Carl's idea.
That's why.
By-
That's why I told him $1,000 an hour, 5-hour minimum. You call me back after I retire. I don't care if it takes 5 minutes, or I don't care if it takes 5 days.
Yep.
I will do what you asked me to do, but
It's going to cost you.
yeah, and you brought it on yourselves. Just remember, you brought it on yourselves. You won't let me train anybody.
Now, I really do love the firm. The firm saved my ass twice. When my best friend and I were laid off from builders, I was out of work exactly a week. I was laid off on a Friday. By 5 p.m. the following Friday, SCI was calling me to start working on the Catton desk as a remote help desk. When my contract was ending at level 3 and Misty was pregnant and we needed insurance, they hired me through Tech Systems to be part of the on-site help desk. And then, 5 years after that, I was a real employee of the firm. So, and the firm's done me really, really well. I cannot complain. Some individuals in the firm are idiots. But that goes for any workplace. So
yeah, it's the same in every company. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I got a call tonight. I am wore out. I will. I wish y'all a good night, and I'll see you next time.
Okay,
all right, later, brother. Have a good night.
Thank you for being here, Chris. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome. Glad I
it.
could be a part of it. See you later.
Night, Chris.
I have to go down the hall, but I will be right back. I will be listening, although I will remember to turn the microphone off.
But yeah, I mean, it's I love the firm to death, but by that point in time, that means as long as I still work at the firm when I retire, means I would have worked for the firm for 37 years, doing jobs in one capacity or another.
Yeah.
So by that time, if they don't have their ducks in a row, that's their own damn fault.
True. Every time you say SCI, I think about the company that took over our flower shop. It was SCI.
Yeah, ours was Shields Enterprises Incorporated. They also, was it North Star or Travel Star or they were doing some of the road mapping type stuff like Google Maps does, where they'd have the camera, 360 mounted on a car, driving through neighborhoods to get things prepared. Pardon the pun. Pave the road for GPS.
Yeah, this was Service Corporation International. They started out as a casket company, went into funeral homes, then into in-house florists, where it was just funeral flowers. And our florist was the first full-service florist that they had. They did not know what to do with us. They did not understand what full service force was. It was basically us leading them as to what was going on. And I was already, they had a company down in Tampa, and my folks were spending half the year in Homosassa Springs, which is just like 20 minutes north of Tampa. I was this close to transferring, and then I went out that night to a bar, saw this guy hitting on my best friend, threw myself on the grenade. Damn state employee, had to stay. I can't complain too much though. He encouraged me to quit there because the assistant manager was way too hassling. The best instance I can tell you what an a-hole he is. The woman who was like a second mother to me died Easter weekend. I had to leave early. Back then, the banks closed at noon on Saturday. I showed the little clerk who was taking over for me what to do with the money. And I went off to there. I come in Monday morning, place had been broken into. They had taken all the money that was in the quote safe, which was nothing but an iron box with a padlock on it. And I'm like, okay. So I go to my special little hidey hole and write down the deposit, because the rules was you had to deposit everything. I could not keep anything out for the cash registers. I deposited over $4,000 in checks and cash that I had saved that company by my little hidey hole. We only lost like about $600 because she didn't do what I told her to do. He totally ignored that I did that. I had to go. I said, you need to give me money for the cash registers because I'm going to need to make change. And he says, well, you can do that as the money comes in through the day. And I'm like, excuse me, I have a
If you don't
gentleman.
have any change for the first transaction, how can you make more change?
And the very first customer on a Monday I knew was going to be this gentleman who came in and got a dozen roses, which back then was only $25, and he would pay for it with $100 bill. This happened every Monday. That man was not going to want to wait for his change. So I went over his head, called corporate, and the next thing he's coming in all upset because corporate called him and said, you get her money for the cash register. You have to take it out of this account and you give her money. So he was mad about that. I never got a thank you for the money that I saved that did not get taken. Nothing. And finally, when I made the mistake of giving him my resume and application for the manager's job, and he never sent it on. And they pulled in somebody from Iowa. And I'm like, really? And Carl says, quit the damn job. So I did. Turned in my 2-week resignation. He made me turn in my key. And Every day for 2 weeks, I sat in the break room reading a book, and I was not allowed to answer any questions about the office. And the little gal that I was training was not totally trained.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
she'd
can
come
believe it.
in. She'd come in with the question and say, "I'm sorry. I would love to help you. I'm prohibited." And I went in. I mean, I was only making $13,000 a year, and I went to Kelly, and they were so impressed with my test that they created a level 4 for me. I was making less than $7 an hour at the florist. My salary doubled at Kelly's. And I was sent out whenever they had a new customer or someone they wanted to impress, they sent me. And I never felt so appreciated ever. After I had my accident, we have a Quaker Oats factory in town. Requested me, twice. The third time I was still in a wheelchair. They said, yeah, and Carl was not only driving me places, he would have to help me in the wheelchair and take me in. And Quaker's like, no problem. We want her. Like, very cool. But yeah. And like 2 months after I'd quit, I ran into the supervisors for the floor shop. They would come down every other month or so from Chicago. And I ran into them at a restaurant, and they're like, we were surprised when you didn't apply for manager because we were going to put you in that job. Okay, I've learned that move from Michaela Jade. And not long after that, I went to a visitation for a friend, and my ex-temporary manager sees me, big smile on his face, like he's looking at his best friend. And he comes over to me to greet me, and I'm like, nope, I'm not being paid to be nice to you anymore, and turn my back on the bastard. Nope. You know what was fun about computers in that day? Home computers, you had to go through the phone lines. I'd use my computer and call his house in the middle of the night when I knew his wife was a nurse. And let it squeal in his ear when he picked up the phone. Yeah, it was petty, it was childish, but it was fun.
There's a thing about being petty and childish. It is fun.
And some people deserve it. Like I said, I never did it when I knew his wife was, because I knew her routine pretty well. It's only when he was at home alone. Oh, yeah. Phone. Yeah. Call this number.
Well, I don't want anybody to think I bear anybody in corporate ill will or anybody in the local company any ill will. It's just, I'm not here to play dominance games. I'm here to do a job. I've been doing jobs for y'all for what will amount to 46 years by the time I walk out for the last time. I do everything that I'm asked to do to the best of my ability, and anything I can't do is because I can't violate the laws of physics. It's not because I don't want to, it's because what you're asking is impossible. If you can't accept that, I'm very sorry. I will try and work harder, but, it takes a while to do the impossible. The merely difficult I can do in 30 minutes or so. But if it just can't be done, I got to step back and think a bit before I can try and attack that little problem. Sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't, but still, I do the best I can do. And at the end of the day, I clock out and go home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't worry about it. I don't make the big decisions. I just carry the spears, beat the bushes, and hope that Buana can actually aim the rifle at the elephant that's charging at him, or the tiger, or whatever it is that he's wanting for a trophy, and get out of the way when the damn thing charges at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I have nothing really against the corporation that took over, but I had been with that florist for over a decade. And when the manager quit and this temporary guy comes in, he comes into my office and he looks around and he says, well, I'm your temporary manager until they can bring someone else in here. If I'm lucky, this place will burn to the ground before that happens. Like, okay. And that kind of set the tone for the next 6 months. And 6 months was all I could take of him. But he's the reason Carl won't let me have a paintball gun in the car.
I imagine there are several others, not the least of which is that they do sell paintballs with capsaicin in it instead of paint.
No, it was just him. Friend of ours ran for representative. I don't remember now. And asked if she could put her sign in our yard, and we're like, sure. And she says, well, do you mind if we put so-and-so's in there? And I knew that he was the same party as she was, and I said, I'll tell you what, you can put anybody in your group in our yard except his. And if you put his in there, I'm going to write something nasty on it. And we live right on Route 1. Everybody would have known my opinion of this person.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, everybody else's sign got put in our yard except his.
A notable omission, I would say. People would notice everybody else but him in this one particular collection when other places were allowing him. So, yeah, that would be an obvious thing.
Well, the fun part is his day job, where he lived and where he had to go to his day job, he would have had to pass by our house. So he would have seen his sign with a big FU spelled out, because I would have put that thing right on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you're in a small town, you know things like where people live. And
Oh.
And ironically, 6 months after I left, the floor shop did burn, almost down.
And your alibi was,
I think I was at Quaker at that time.
Alibi is whatever she wants it to be. Just give me a couple hours to fix the timestamps on the video.
Yeah. Actually, Carl and I are like, well, I wonder what he was doing that night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've actually run across that situation. wasn't a business that burned down, but I've been in that situation too. There was a business that burned down because they were very stupid in covering their tracks, and it turns out that they had embezzled a bunch of money and set the store on fire, and not only burned down their store but a dozen others on either side.
Oh my.
But the tragic part was their store was a pet shop,
Mm.
and they didn't bother to rescue anything inside. So whatever sentence that the judge decided was appropriate for them, I hope it was very, very severe. They did not get off.
Still
They
wasn't
did get
enough.
caught. They did do jail time. I don't think whatever time they got was enough, but at least they got something.
Yeah.
Unless they were punched in whatever sensitive spots they have on their body daily, multiple times a day, it wouldn't be enough. That's
Oh, believe me,
Yeah.
I felt that the only suitable punishment would be lock them in a little building and set it on fire and don't let them out.
Works for me.
Eye for an eye.
no, they'd be over too quickly. They need to fucking suffer.
Well, I'm sure they suffered. They were not. They were very childish people. And believe me, anything that they got handed as jail time or financial reparations they had to make to the other businesses that got burned out, they felt it. They were horribly inconvenienced and very Karen got slapped for being a Karen sort of thing. But still, it to this day, it was not enough. And believe me, that's weird that I would remember that, because that was ages ago. I mean, seriously, ages ago.
Can I help you? Apparently, it is designated Daddy must give me scritchiest time.
Ah,
All right, fat ass. Come up here on camera.
there's a sweet baby.
Hello,
Just
baby.
nerd. No, don't you dare try to eat that. You know better than that. Daddy get grumpy on that. Yes. I am his emotional support human.
Mm-hmm. I actually have the dog to come back here and leave Lindsay alone so she could feed the outdoor cats. And usually the dog tries to climb all over you because she just loves you.
Mm-hmm.
I got her to just lay here and be content with being petted.
Can you hear that?
I hear a loud purr. Well, it's
Yes.
not loud, but
Yes, sweet baby.
Yes.
it's a very
Another
quiet
siren.
chainsaw. Yeah. I'd say, there's my ride, but no, we've still got another 30 minutes. So.
The other night when I had all those sirens over here, a bicycle shop burnt down, and evidently there was and they still haven't said why this 77-year-old gentleman was in the bike shop at night, but yeah. It's like, my babies are in sleeping with their daddy.
Mm-hmm. Well, The dog is in bed. Lindsay is in bed. Cats have been fed. Ones on the porch now have a heated water bowl that will not freeze. The ones out in the dog pen have a heated water bowl that will not freeze, and a little teeny tiny electric blanket that they can all gather around on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
they're
they make
set.
these non-electric pet blankets that
Pause.
pads that when they lay on them, they
Down.
somehow keep them warm.
They soak up their body heat, and
Yeah.
spread it around in a larger area. I've seen those. I don't know how they work. Now, when we had a big,
No claws, you know better.
when the cats were younger, we had a big shed out back that I built, and we had one of those electric oil-filled radiators back there turned on low, and it kept it. The temperature inside would keep their drinking water from freezing,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was sitting on a concrete slab. And it was, it didn't add that much to the electric bill. It was no big sacrifice, but keeping the animals warm during the coldest winters, I didn't mind. I don't mind it at all. I mean, I feel better about having actually gone that far rather than back in the old days where y'all go in the barn.
Yeah.
But,
Carl feels better now that we've got charcoal in.
Yeah.
That there's still one cat out there that he worries about, and I'm like, don't worry about that cat. That cat does not. For one thing, she doesn't look like a feral cat. She's nice and fat. Her coat is nice and shiny.
She's got a home somewhere. She just likes to hang out here for free food.
Mm-hmm. She disappears. She disappears when it's too hot, and she disappears when it's really, really cold. She's got somebody somewhere that's keeping her safe during those times. I said, you don't have to worry about that cat. And sure enough, when it's turned warm, here she came again, looking fat and sassy and complaining to Carl because there was no food in the food dish.
We had one. It was one of the ones that came up out of the woods. Lindsay, I won't say tamed, but
befriended.
Befriended. That's a good word. And it would come up and eat, and wouldn't come inside the fence, wouldn't come up on the porch. And we thought for a while, this one of the push lawnmowers that we pretty much just put a tarp over to keep it from filling up with rainwater. We think seriously that he was ducking under there at night, sleeping under the tarp, like a little tent. But eventually, he got to going over to the next door neighbors, and they took him in. He lives in a house now. Wouldn't come in ours, but evidently their food was more palatable. But I don't begrudge it because he was a sweet cat. He was a really sweet cat.
Not as much competition, maybe.
Well, yeah, really. I mean, okay. Y'all got 19 other cats. They don't have any over here. I'm going over here. They'll feed me.
They'll pay more attention to me.
Yeah. Well, he finally got to where he'd go inside and be their indoor kitty.
Yep.
Yeah, Barry's grandma and his uncle were barn cats at my mother-in-law's. And they were looking to try to get rid of some of the cats and stuff like that because they just had an explosion of cats, and then they had a fox in the area, so they had the cat population dwindle very quickly. So they wanted them to be someplace a little bit safer, so we decided to take them in. Although we thought Barry's uncle was actually an aunt. Turns out it was an uncle.
Mm-hmm.
But we get the mother inside, well, technically the grandmother, inside the house, and she goes freaking crazy. Feral barn cat in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, let's try to get her, because she was on the molding on the wall, climbing on the
Curtain rods.
curtains, climbing the molding around the door jamb. So that cat's a mutant. Well, was. She's passed many years now. But so I grabbed her on the neck by the scruff, where you're supposed to grab a cat, where it's not supposed to be able to reach its head back around and tag you. She managed to reach her head back around and tag me. She's lucky she bit me. Had she bit Misty or any of the other kids, she'd be dead.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, you know what? I'm just trying to show you, Cat, you can go more than just on this piece of the wall. You have an entire house to hide in. So after I finally got that to stop bleeding, it looked like I had put a golf ball under the skin of my hand. She got me right on a vein.
Ooh.
So it puffed up badly. And of course, it's a cat bite. So I probably should have gone and got some antibiotics for it, but I survived. I only hissed slightly at a full moon. I wonder if she might have been radioactive. I wonder that's why Barry gets along with me so well. Anyways, sorry, I digress. So she eventually and Kisa, Barry's uncle, decided to live behind the stove for a little bit. We managed to coax the kitten out, play with it, but she would stay behind there. So we finally got her out from behind there, and she decided to live behind the washing machines and the water heater, because behind the water heater, I could not get to her. So finally, I got sick of it because they weren't coming out to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
So I'm like, fine. This ends now. So I got her, and then I got her into the cage. But between the laundry room and the cage, she's just pissing everywhere. Because, of course, she's frightened, so she's trying to use it as a self-defense mechanism. That time, I had leather gloves on. So she didn't break the skin, but I did end up with a couple blood blisters that time from trying to get her out. So I get her in the cage, get her in the front yard. Kisa was old enough that he didn't need her to nurse from. So I'm like, the kitten can stay. She's got to go. Called animal control. Come to find out, animal control did not come out to my house on a Sunday. Animal control did not, or on a Saturday, I should say. Animal control, they weren't even open on Saturdays. Animal control wouldn't come out to my house, period. I would have to drop the cat off between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
While you're working.
Yeah.
Slight problem is I worked downtown Chicago at the time. Well, technically, I still work downtown Chicago. I just get to work from home instead of having to go to the office all the time. So I'm like, there's no way in hell I can take her. So I'm like, you know what? Here's what I'll do. I will put food and water outside for this cat. I am fine with feeding this cat if this cat decides to stick around and decides to be an outside cat. You know what? It grew up in a barn. It lived in a barn. It might not want to be an inside cat. Fine. So did that. Well, actually, what I did is I waited to see if I opened the cage, let the cat out, and I waited to see if she would hang around the house. She was hanging around the house, so we started putting out food. She got pregnant again, and in that litter is where Barry's father was born. There was 3 kittens born in that second litter. Barry's father, Priest, was very skittish, did not really take to us at too much to begin with. His Aunt Stormy loved us. His uncle Tripod unfortunately passed away.
Oh.
The reason we call the cat Tripod is it had a severely broken leg. We figured, okay, the next morning we would take it to the vet to see if we could save it. The leg was so broken and stuff that there were actually maggots already in the wound. The leg was broken for a while, and it wasn't a break; it was a break. The leg was flopping, so we did our best to keep the cat comfortable and warm. It didn't make it. The next morning, I came out to go to work, and it was dead, like 5 feet in front of my van. So we buried it. I told my wife and kids to wait until I got home. They didn't. And they buried it only 6 inches deep.
Ooh.
Nothing ever disturbed its grave.
Wow.
And we live in an area with coyotes and raccoons and possum and dogs running around, and it's nothing ever disturbed Tripod's grave. After that, we managed to get Priest and Stormy to start coming inside. I figured out how Tripod broke his leg. So my neighbor's fence had the pointy.
I can see it now.
Tops, 6-foot fence. What happened is he was climbing on the tree above it, fell, and his leg got jammed between 2 of those uprights, and he was flopping so bad he broke his leg. How I found this out is shortly after Tripod passed away, same thing happened to Priest. And of course, I see it happen to Priest, so I managed to get over the fence, and I'm trying to help him, but he's freaking out even harder now because now the big scary human, because his mom's telling lies about us, is trying to screw with him. But yeah, I saw how it was jammed in there, so I managed to pull the things apart and lift him up. And of course, he hissed at me, slashed at me a little bit, and ran away. He didn't cut deep; it was just barely a surface scratch. But eventually he started coming up to the house, and we got him and Storm and bustled them inside. Let them stay inside for a few months, and then let them be inside-outside cats as they so chose. I was the only person for years that Priest would let pick up. I was the first person, and for a while the only person that he would allow to sit on the couch with him. So if he was sitting on the far end of the couch and I sat on the exact opposite end of the couch, at first he would bolt, and then eventually he'd be like, all right, you're over there, that's fine. And then eventually I would sit down on the far end of the couch and scooch, and eventually he got to the point where I could do that and scooch all the way to sit up next to him and pet him a little bit, as long as I didn't try to pick him up. And then eventually I could sit down right next to him and he'd be like, all right, anyone else tried it? And he would bolt. And then one time, Misty's grandmother tried to kill me. She didn't really. She undercooked chicken in chicken and dumplings. So I ended up with food poisoning. I was hallucinating. That's how sick I was with food poisoning. But I was laying on the couch, and he actually jumped up on the couch. Usually, if someone was laying on the couch, he wouldn't come anywhere near it. But he actually jumped up on the couch, came up, and snuggled down with me. So he was my buddy. He's easily the favorite cat I've ever had. But he can't bitch too much because Priest is his father.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're middle of winter. Snow was so deep I could have actually lost Crow in the backyard easily. There's this little cat with a little bit of Maine Coon in it, just crying on the back porch. I don't get any say in the matter. She gets let in. She tries to murder me several times. And by trying to murder me, I like to walk through my house, lights completely off. I know how many steps it is between my bedroom and the bathroom. So I was walking down the hall, and she's like, "Oh, people, one of the saviors," and comes to rub between my legs and stuff. Of course, me not seeing her and her being stealthy as all hell, could not hear her until all of a sudden I feel something between my legs, and I hear "Meow," as she shoots off down the hallway because she's suddenly being kicked as I'm tripping over her. But yeah, she ended up loving me to death too. It's when she finally seduced Priest and ended up knocked up with Priest's babies. We had a banana box that we put under our coffee table. And I'm like, okay, when it comes time, we need to make sure that she'll stay in there. She loves me. She's always, laying on me and stuff like that. I took one of my old shirts that would have my scent on it and stuck it in there. So I thought we'd have to find where the babies are, move them to the box. No. Mama was a good mama, excellent mama, had the babies in the box. Didn't have to move them at all. And then, of course, Barry got his name because at the end of the night, we'd gather all the kittens up, put them in the box, stark white hallway, could see if anything was following us down, no furniture or anything. We'd see nothing by our feet, nothing followed us down. We'd open the door, turn on the light, and there Barry is sitting on our bed like, "What took you so long?" So that is why he is named after the Flash.
Yeah, Carl swears that sometimes that there must be two of Calvin because he can go down the back stairs. Carl starts to leave his office. Calvin will flash down the back stairs and be up the front stairs and waiting at the end of that hallway before Carl can get to the end of that hallway. But we've been really lucky. When we had the 7 cats, 4 of them had been outdoor cats. You open the door to the outside and they'd run in the opposite direction. They wanted nothing to do with going back outside. And not surprised so much that Cal doesn't want to go outside because I don't think he'd been out that long before he found Carl. But we kind of worried when we brought Charcoal inside, but she's the same way. She doesn't want anything to do with the outside. You open one of the outside doors and she makes sure she's in a different room.
He'll come out on the balcony with us now, and every once in a while he'll come down the steps here. But I mean, until shortly before we were getting ready to move, we made him be an indoor-only cat. This way, we didn't have to worry about the last day not seeing him, what's going to happen to him kind of a deal. And honestly, I I was a weepy bitch when we were losing that place because I'm like, are we going to get a place that's going to allow us to have him? And because I'm like, we can't split up Bucky and Bella. So do we give up our dogs or do we give up a cat? Because
Talk about a
almost no
rock and a
place,
hard place.
because no place will usually give you a limit for 3 animals. They'll only give you the pet deposit and all that for 2. So I'm like, I wonder if I can get him done up as a service animal, because if he's a service animal, he's a medical device. So cost me $125, but he is a medical device. And apparently I'm a lot more psychologically fucked up than I thought, because I'm like, it'll never work for me. But if it doesn't work for me, I can run it through for Crow. Crow recently, at that point in time, had attempted suicide. So I'm like, they're probably going to allow it for Crow if they don't allow it for me. But we'll put it through trying to go for me first. Yeah, they didn't bat an eyelash. They're like, yeah, you tick all the boxes. We'll get it sent over to a psychologist. They'll sign whatever they have to sign. Actually, psychiatrist, because technically it's a prescription. So within like an hour, I had the letter. And then when this place called, I'm like, just to make sure, we have a cat, but he's been certified as a service animal. Is that going to cause any issues? Because just because I get him qualified as a service animal doesn't mean the place is going to actually, go by the Americans with Disabilities Act. But they're like, yeah, you just have to fill out a reasonable accommodation form. I'm like, all right.
No problem.
So, so I mean, it was no problem. We don't pay anything extra for Barry at all. There was no extra deposit for him. There's no pet rent for him. But again, he's an emotional support animal. So,
right.
And I can't count how often he's hopping up on my lap or popping up on my chest and that. So apparently, I'm his emotional support human. He'll do it to Misty every once in a while, but I get it on a fairly regular basis. But I don't mind. Do I, buddy? Do I? I just mind when you eat all your food in one lightning flash and then, puke it all over my office floor.
Yeah. They'll do that.
The scarf and barf. Although the past couple weeks, he actually hasn't been eating all of his food in the morning. So I'm very proud of him. He's actually learning, it's going to be here for me after
nobody's going to take
7
it away.
fucking years. But I mean, his entire life, food's been up there. He's had full access to it. We don't take it down or anything like that. But he's a good cat. He's not quite the character that his uncle was.
I did try no more feeding the cats at the dining room table. They have to eat in the kitchen. Yeah. Carl followed that for almost a year.
Oh, I was going to say an hour.
No, he made it pretty much when it was just Calvin.
But I try to get Misty and Crow to not feed the dogs from the table. It needs to be put in their dish, and that didn't last very long. And anymore, I don't even remember to do it myself. So I'm.
No, he puts down a napkin or a small paper plate and gives him stuff from his plate on there. I'm like, okay. Because once you've done it, you can't not do it anymore. Not like that.
Yep. Lindsay will sit down to eat, and used to be cats, but now it's the dog. They just sit there and look at her with
They know a soft touch.
these big brown eyes, and she, she's handing over food. What she'll take a bite, 3 bites, 4 bites, give the dog a bite, over and over again. And I'm continually amazed. The dog will spend all day next to her. When I come home from work, dog's on the couch trying to climb through the windows because I'm home. I don't know what it. Well, I do know exactly what it is. There's something in the Hollifield DNA. We've got this animal magnetism. We attract animals.
Oh, I was going to just say any female of any species.
Well, that's Lindsay's opinion, yes, but no, it doesn't have to be females. Just almost any animal you can think of has been made a pet by somebody in my family. I mean,
So my pops grew up in northern Wisconsin, not too far from the Michigan border. In fact, they used to run over to Michigan all the time to get smoked chubs. But growing up, the nearest neighbor was about a quarter mile down the road. They had 100 acres of woods that they would log and replant and the whole 9 yards, just living off the tree rice. But of course, middle of nowhere, northern Wisconsin, the house pets that they have had include skunks, raccoons, a red-tailed hawk, and 2 deer.
Mm-hmm.
My dad says I should say, got to get used to using that tense, that one of the funniest sights you will ever see in your entire life is a deer galloping through the house until it hits linoleum. And then it's the Bambi ice scene.
Mm-hmm. Kimber does that too, only it's not so much the linoleum, it's the throw rugs across the linoleum. It's like, ooh, going sledding now.
But apparently hooves don't get traction on linoleum.
Yeah.
Not much does.
I remember running through my grandma's house, which is the house my dad grew up in socks, not understanding socks and linoleum, no friction whatsoever. And next thing I know, I'm on top of the dishwasher like, what happened? I was just come from the bathroom.
I don't like hardwood floors, and I know why. When I was 8 or 9, let's see, David got married okay, I would have been 9 or 10 when Dale got married. His wife had taken me to visit her parents, her mother, and I was walking from the kitchen into the living room, and just had flats on with the slippery bottom, and slipped on the, of course, like you say, no friction, slipped on the hardwood floor and almost fell, managed to not fall, and got chewed up for sliding on the floor. And being only 9 or 10 and not the person that I am now, took it to heart. Authority crushed down on me, and I've not liked hardwood floors since then.
Misty loves hardwood floors and laminate and stuff like that. And yeah, I find it tedious to take care of. And yeah, I'm like, okay, we've got children, we move furniture, we've got pets. This is not going to stay pristine very long. Especially when you have kids spilling. But yeah, it is what it is. Well, currently we're in an apartment that's mostly carpeted, so I win for now.
For now.
And I'm like, hardwood floors are all well and good until 3:00 in the morning on a especially cold night near a window that has an air leak. Because you'll hit that cold floor and you'll be like, oh dear mother of God, what have I done to deserve this fresh hell?
Mm-hmm.
I remember one house we moved into when I don't believe my little brother had even been born yet, so it had to be before 65. And
Now, are you the eldest or are you the middle?
I'm the oldest. So my sister's 3 years younger than me, and my brother's 5 years younger than her. So we moved into a house, and it had oak floors that had just been laid down. And my parents went to a great deal of trouble to finish the floor and wax it for the first time.
Ooh.
And I remember my dad telling me and my sister to sit down on this woven carpet, one of those things that they make pot holders with the same pattern. I know you know exactly what I mean, but I don't remember what it is. But anyway, and
looks like a basket weave.
Yeah.
And mom had just done the wax and everything. It needed to be smoothed in and polished and everything. Dad told us to get on this carpet, and he's kind of swinging us around the living room because we weighed just enough to where he could move both of us together. Then we were pressing the little piece of the throw rug carpet there, and it
enough pressure, you were buffing the floor.
We wound up spending days doing this over and over again till the floor was just absolutely museum quality shiny, and it was so much fun, and
They kept it buffed.
yeah, I mean seriously, they had this buffing machine, and mom and dad both looked at it, go, that ain't gonna work. And just got the carpet out and started slinging us around the floor like we were in a go-kart or something. It was so much fun. And I swear, there must have been times when we were asleep that mom and dad would put on the thickest socks they've got and just skate across like Tom Cruise. Just slide across the floor.
Years before the movie comes out, but yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
The decades.
Take those old records off the shelf.
Before Tom Cruise had even been born, we're talking way back, and I don't know who's got that house now, but I hope them floors are still shiny because we put a lot of work into it. Seriously.
Every house I ever had carpeting in it. Usually a industrial sort of thing, because that's what you need on the farm when you don't have time to clean and wax hardwood floors. So you need some kind of carpet that you can just run the vacuum cleaner over. Then we moved into this place, and somebody put, it must have been during the 70s, because I think that's about the time the style was in, white Berber molded carpeting that has all these little ridges in it that the dirt gets down the ridges, but the vacuum cleaner can't pick up.
Yep.
Not a regular one. So when we had the waterfall, I love Country Financial. I love their agents. The guy comes in and, we show him the bathroom, and he says, okay, we can do this, and we show him the dining room. He says, okay, we need to get the lighting fixed, and he's looking at, and he says, are you wanting the floor or the carpeting? And I said, well, it depends on what the floor looks like underneath, because it is a dining room. It probably should have hardwood floor rather than carpeting. And then he looks, and it's almost an open floor pattern from the dining room to the living room around to the foyer. And it's all this icky white carpeting. And he's walking through the living room and into the foyer, and he says, well, this is all contiguous. Let's say we replace it all. And I'm like, can I? So I go and I pick up this, to me, beautiful blue indoor-outdoor carpeting, and it looks wonderful. My brother-in-law comes in and says, well, that looks a little industrial. That's the idea. Because Carl can run just this cheap little vacuum cleaner over it, and it gets it just like that. And
I hate to say it, but we're already over 2 hours, so let me play the bedtime story and shut the recording off, and we can keep going as long as y'all want. But the after party. But time to say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Yes, folks, I know I played the intro instead of the outro. I'm sorry, but I don't care. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Deal with it. Good night. I mean, seriously.